This video is going to be brought to you by Gfuel, and listen up ladies and fellas, don't you dare be sour unless you're talking about Gfuel's all new sour fruit punch. The iconic fruit flavor is getting a sour revamp, and Gfuel is celebrating the launch by taking its sour sibling out the Gfuel vault, the Sour Pixel Potion, a sour grape flavor that is sure to have your mouth puckering. The sour fruit punch energy formula is delicious and has zero sugar, and is packed with vitamins and antioxidants that you're definitely going to be craving, and so too is the Sour Pixel Potion great flavor. There's just enough caffeine in it to get your day started or use as a pick-me-up, which you guys know I am very quick to use Gfuel. I've used it for years now, both to get my day started as well as to refuel on another boost, because running 3 YouTube channels, including one like this one that uploads daily, it is not easy, but Gfuel takes the load off. Use my promo code KAGE at checkout by using my affiliate link down below to get yours today. During the events of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex Chapter 9, there was a lot to take away from the chapter, but buried beneath all the hype moments like Kurama meeting Himawari and Boruto's karma activating for the first time, there were other moments buried in the story that stood out when you read the chapter very closely that needed to be discussed as well, which is why in today's newest Naruto Explained video, we are going to be taking a look at some of the significance in one of those scenes, which is the moment where we see something occur in the chapter that is another small instance that might lead to another confirmation in the future for Shikamaru, because it directly connects to prior seeds that were planted earlier in the story of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex. So chapter 9 of the manga, it gave us a rather interesting moment where Boruto was made aware of everything that was going on inside of Konoha, and Boruto, as we would all have expected, went from resting and recovering from so many battles that he's fought earlier to now he's teleporting back to the village to address the major threat that was being posed to the village, with it once again being under attack, this time by the evolved Shinju, Jura, and Hidari. When Boruto arrived at the scene, there was a very important moment that occurred. One of Boruto's toads, or rather Kashi and Koji's toads, they just happened to be in Shikamaru's Hokage office, and this is where the small details hidden in the narrative really come into play, because they're hidden for a reason. It's just like a magic trick where the magician, he has your eyes paying attention to some shiny object while the real thing that allows the magic trick to occur is hidden in plain sight. It's very fitting for a sequel to a ninja story that practices the whole art of a ninja must see through deception. Well, the toad was in Shikamaru's office, and it specifically warned Shikamaru to not turn around, and the reason being here is obviously Eida, because her Sumire, it can look back at the moment and it can observe all things in the past that date all the way up to the moment of her birth, which is at that point in the timeline 19 years ago. So that will be the calendar year of the 4th Great Ninja War. Shikamaru, however, was caught off guard and was drawn at having briefly jumped when the voice of the toad startled him, and he's shown looking out the corner of his eye to use his peripheral vision to see who was behind him. The reason why this is so important is that in a very subtle way, a very sneaky way, the story is adding another layer to the subplot that we had introduced in chapter 4 Boruto 2 Blue Vortex, which is Kawaki's open concern that someone from the sensory unit was working with Boruto, and Shikamaru doubled down at the time, not only that this was far from the case, but if they did have a traitor in their ranks, he would be the one who knows about it. At the time, Shikamaru, he had no reason to believe that his memory had been altered, outside of Sarada's insistence that this was the case, but as we saw, her words alone, they weren't enough to break through the funk that Omnipotence had on him, and it required Amato activating Shikamaru's secret move, #1 Ninja Hater no Jutsu, where Amato said that all of their memories, they had been altered due to some unknown effect, and that he's known all along since day one. And it took hearing something like that to even make Shikamaru consider what Sarada was saying was correct. But that epiphany moment, it came after his conversation with Kawaki, where he said, "Hey bro, you got nothing to worry about." From the very start of their plan to get one over on Eida to secure a trap for her, where Boruto and Kawaki were supposed to take care of Damon, and Sarada and Class Rep were supposed to take care of Eida, they had always been using the Yamanaka clan's hidden jutsu, the mind transmission jutsu, as a way to circumvent her Sumirigan's ability to see what's going on in real time, or to see what happens in the past when she looks back. Because as we've seen, there are multiple times where there have been weaknesses shown to Eida's Sumirigan ability, one of them being that she cannot gain information from conversations that occur using the Yamanaka clan's mind transmission jutsu. This method isn't something that was used in part 1 with Kawaki during the time that they wanted to speak without Eida knowing. The two people who were predominantly in use of this method to speak with Shikamaru secretly were Sarada and Class Rep. Right now, Eida has no reason to suspect that this method of communication is ongoing, and neither does Kawaki, but as we've seen, Eida for a time was growing suspicious of Sarada and Class Rep for different reasons, wondering, hey, if you're immune to omnipotence, then does that mean you're immune to my enchantment power to control hearts? And Kawaki was already using logic to deduce how Boruto knew to get into the village at the moment that he did, and why nobody knew that he arrived until he did. When we go back to the chapter in Boruto Naruto Next Generations where Boruto runs off to confront Kawaki, one of the things that we see is how things appear from Eida's perspective when she's looking back at things to see how they happened in the past. We saw her basically standing in the room behind Naruto and Kawaki and Hinata as Kawaki was sealing them away, or we've seen that she's been drawn looking from a distance to the side like she did when Mitsuki and Boruto were fighting in the most recent chapters and they were conversing and Boruto said, hey, I'll always be the sun to your moon. I bring this up to say this: if she gets a whim to look back at Shikamaru's movements during the time that Boruto arrived in Konoha, depending on where she's positioned, when she projects herself back into that moment of time to look, she's either going to be off to the side and she will be able to see the toad just conveniently hop onto Shikamaru's desk to speak with him, or she's going to be standing behind the desk and see the toad between the stack of books closest to Shikamaru and the smaller stack of books at the front curve of his desk. By jumping, Shikamaru would have given her enough reason to say, why did he flinch all of a sudden to see what's going on? And Shikamaru suddenly goes from talking verbally to issue commands to Sarada and Class Rep to now he's suddenly standing around in silence after suddenly being startled. On one hand, it is very easy to say that someone like Eida, who has told us in the past that she has a very short attention span and she finds most things that she sees to be absolutely boring. We've seen her cut off her Semigon mid-scene because she's gotten bored and doesn't think anything of importance is going to happen when she's looking. But with Boruto showing up in Konoha multiple times in such a short period of time, and Kawaki already being suspicious that someone is helping Boruto from within Konoha, this might be the thing that sets Kawaki off on wanting to have answers given to him, and the person who can provide those answers the fastest is Eida. If Kawaki is able to point her in the right direction, she's going to be able to look through everything and start finding answers. Think about it for a second. Boruto showing up in Konoha one time, that can be chalked up to a coincidence, but 3 times in such a short period of time, it's going to take someone like Kawaki who is already on edge and suspicious, and it's going to have him start poking around. It really comes down to, do you believe Eida would look into Shikamaru? And I think there's a chance that she might do so if Kawaki insists on it, because Kawaki was already drawn looking at the corner of his eye to the next panel of the manga where Shikamaru was positioned in the chapter where Boruto suddenly got away before Kawaki and Delta could sneak attack. Delta's like, hey, guess he's just more lucky than you, and Kawaki looks suspicious. If Eida does see the toad enter Shikamaru's office, or she sees the toad on the desk, again, depending on where she's positioned, then she's got something for Kawaki, but that brings up another question entirely. Does Eida even give that information to Kawaki? Because as her conversation with Mitsuki did show, she is wavering when it comes to Kawaki, and she wants to have a chance to speak with Boruto one-on-one. Between that and people like Delta telling her that she shouldn't be putting up with Kawaki's mistreatment, and her own tendency in the past to do what she wants on her own whim, even if it goes against what Kawaki wants, like when she promised Boruto that until he returned to Konoha, she would refuse to use her powers to look for him and give him a way via his location. Even if Kawaki and Shikamaru asked her to do so, she said she would refuse. It's always possible that something similar happens here, that now that Boruto has piqued her interest yet again, she doesn't give Kawaki the intel that he's asking for, and rather she holds off on it until she gets the opportunity to speak to Boruto, because she's shown in the past she does what she wants when she wants. But I want to raise what I believe is a Chekhov's gun here. So going back to Boruto Naruto Next Generation, Shikamaru specifically tells Sarada and Class Rep to make sure that neither of them gives it away to Eida that they're using the mind transmission jutsu to communicate without her Semi Sharingan, being made aware of it, the fact that a worry was even expressed that Eida could find out, it means that at some point she's going to find out what's been going on. And there are other factors in play here. If she describes what is happening, that Shikamaru appeared to stop talking after suddenly talking and being in conversation with Sarada and class rep and is now quiet, and Amato hears about it, he's going to suspect the mind transmission jutsu because Shikamaru and Ino used it to speak to him in the past when Eida and Code were in his laboratory. It's in character for Amato to not reveal information till it benefits him, and this would benefit him. He'd be smart enough to know that he was being monitored when he told class rep the truth, which means he's already anticipated a response because he and Shikamaru are there in an eternal game of shogi. If Eida notices the frog on the desk, you run into Amato knowing that Kashin Koji is alive, which goes back to Ishiki teasing a confrontation between the two in the future. Finally, you have Kawaki thinking that there is a leak somewhere, and those are enough puzzle pieces to where should the narrator choose to yuck up the story by adding more conflict, it could lead to a rather interesting set of scenarios for the narrator to play with, because the ramifications for each, it would deliver some very tense conversations. Kashin Koji sending a toad to Shikamaru's location, while it was an unavoidable scenario since they needed to have Shikamaru made aware of Boruto's location so that they can speak to him telepathically and Boruto can know what he's going into, it does come with some risks. But ultimately, as we said several months ago, Boruto using toads as a go-between for himself and Shikamaru was always going to be something that was inevitable. But I can't shake the feeling that there's something more going on here that comes from the toads appearing in Shikamaru's office and the reaction that he had, and it's warning to him not to turn around. That reeked of basically saying beware of Eida, even without her name being mentioned. And to slip it into the chapter where there's so much stuff going on, that was a good choice of writing because it adds a layer to another subplot while all the action and all the plot twists that happen in the chapter are distracting you. In fact, it was almost as well done as the setup that we had to getting Sukuna's trump card being shown in the new Jujutsu Kaisen chapter, which my review is on the left, and then the Boruto chapter reviews on the right for anyone who missed it.